Okay, so let's get started. This is the new updated version of Portrait Studio. I will be posting a video soon featuring all of the new changes and all the new tools that are included in the new update. But if you currently have a copy of Portrait Studio, your updater should give you the new version free of charge. The price is going to go up after this, though. So you get all updates free for life. It's just a one-time buy with Portrait Studio, but I'm going to be using it finally. I'm going to be able to use it in classes because it's actually done. And I'm just so happy. I'm so happy. Okay, so let's begin. Let me turn this off. And let me put this back to front view. Alright. So I'm going to look at why we're not using cast shadows in this painting. So the first thing that pops out at me is how low the eyes are. The eyes are very, very low. And when we're thinking about perspective, like let's say his head right now is in a perspective. This is front view as if we weren't in a perspective. This is if the camera is really high, camera's really low, and the camera, if it's just looking directly at you, the eyes are usually above the ear line. But your ears are really, really high. The eyes are all the way down here. So we need to correct that right now. You have such a perfect face everywhere else, and then it's just the eyes are really low, and it's just the entire unit. The entire section. Eye sockets and all. We will be adding a skeleton model to Portrait Studio as well. I'm also going to be adding a symmetry lines that when you're rotating on 3/4 view, you'll be able to have, let me just grayscale that, you'll be able to have a symmetry line. Let me make the background brighter. Alright. So when you're a symmetry line running right down the face, that will kind of help you track down exactly what's part of the rotation in 3/4 view. You're going to have grid lines, contour lines, basically longitude and latitude lines all over the face as well. So he looks old now because there's bags. But the eyes are very, very low, Emmanuel. So Emmanuel is one of those viewers that has been around for a while, and he's improved so much. It's unbelievable. We've done such a wonderful job. But the eyes are really low. So they can be this low, but the rest of the face also has to be that low. So let's take a look at what happens to the nostrils when they get this low. Alright, so the eyes are lower, so as they're as low as you made them. The eyes are way lower than the ears. We don't see much of the nostrils anymore, but your nostrils are fully visible. So when the nostrils are this visible, right now they have like an ambience to them, so they're bright. When the nostrils are this visible, the eyes are really high, almost above the level of the nose. I mean of the ears. But if the nose was like upturned, or the nose was, let's take a look at the nose, upturn. So if the nose was this kind of nose and from the side it reads as that, so it's an upturned nose, which can happen. And he's looking down and the eyes are beneath the ear line again, just like you did it. Then the nostrils would simply look like this from the side in your version. I asked you to turn off motion blur. Where's motion blur? Motion blur is really good for those who have low-end computers that you know need to rotate, but the frames in the rotation cause your computer to lag. So we have motion blur, but I wanted it off because it makes me sick because I have motion sickness. Okay, so if this didn't happen, if the nose wasn't upturned, and we had the ears at eye level, just like this, then the nostrils will be slightly visible, but because they're beneath, your nostrils were too visible considering the kind of nose you were drawing. So that's why I had to move the eyes up instead of moving the rest of the face. Do you understand? There's also the possibility that his ears could have just been really, really high. But we can't use those kinds of excuses when we have fundamental proportion issues. So when the proportion issues are that bad, then you can't just depend on the fact that, oh yeah, well his ears are really high. The eyes felt really, really, really low. And so they were low considering the placement of the eyebrows as well, so I might have to raise them up again. one more time, but without moving the eyebrows. Just a little bit beneath the eyebrows would be best. Just like that. And then I'm going to talk about cast shadows in a second. So we finished talking about Portrait Studio and the placement, the proportions. Now I'm just going to focus on shadows. So because you had the inner corner of the eye here, I have to lighten this part of the nose. Remember, don't value share. Alright. I'm just going to flip the canvas, make sure my edits are okay. Go into God mode. Eyes are just a bit high. No. When you zoom out this far, you can really tell where the mistakes are when it comes to measurement, if the eyes are low or not. So at first it's hard to tell that the eyes are really low, and then you just kind of change your perspective, interrupt your vantage point, and then you find the mistakes immediately. And flipping the canvas is one way to interrupt your vantage point, but zooming the hell out, just all the way out, that is one amazing way. It's equivalent to flipping your canvas. Okay. So one other thing before I get started is just the position of the jawline and the skull. So I'm going to get liquefy stuff out of the way and then start talking about cast shadows and where they belong in your piece. So you really are very careful with your cast shadows, Emmanuel. Yeah, so the neck width needs to be a little cylindrical. And the jawline needed to be a little thicker. So let's take a look at the before and after again. Alright, just making quick notes. And one last thing, when I flipped the canvas, I did notice that there is a, I'm not even looking at the chat because I know you guys are just going off. The skull needs to be a little bit more symmetrical. Alright, so before, after, before, after. The placement of the nose was great. The width of the neck, this is a great default to learn. It's a great default to know how to do for your portfolio. It's a great representation of how well you, how much control you have over the male face. There isn't too much of the female beauty signatures in here. Okay, just fix that eye. It was a little droopy, and then what happened is that because it was droopy, you lost part of the intensity of the gaze. All right. And I'm just taking one more look at the edges of the lips from the navigator. I think we need to bring in some radial shading on the edges of the lips, so the lips feel more combined with the face around them. So what you need to do is you need to start bringing in some of that shadow, that halo shadow on the corners of the lips. So before it becomes like a cavity or a pit, it has like a large, kind of like a dome shadow around it. Damn it, didn't I put it on darken? There you go. And so what needs to happen is the lips can't just float by themselves at the edges of the lips. They need to be introduced gradually by a large brush that creates the feeling of that radial descent into the corners of the lips. And I'll look over at the questions in a second, so if you guys have any questions, please write my name as you write the question so that I can find it. If I don't find it, if you don't do that, I can't find it. And I'm just blurring out the very starting point of the lips, just above the corners. And that's going to help the lips feel more unified with the skin around them. The upper lip does cast a shadow on the lower lip, so I think you're missing a little bit of that. You're also missing the darkest point around the lips. Good job on the nose. It really feels like it's three-dimensional. So I'm radially just descending the lowest shadow. Just like that. And then we go back into liquefy. And then you don't have to make it symmetrical, but again, for the sake of your portfolio, just so that you can have a default face that they go to, a typical beauty face they're going to give to their next, I don't know, Tomb Raider character or something like that. They see that you're capable of giving them beauty and symmetry, specifically. Not necessarily the pretty Barbie doll face, but beauty and symmetry. So gave the face a little bit more structure. This kind of perky mouth, though, isn't recommended for males. Just because that when you do draw a female, like what's left in the signatures, we will reserve some of these signatures for female faces. So that the lips do feel a little perky, especially because I'm kind of giving them more volume here. The depth of the Cupid's bow happens at the top as well as the little dip down here. But I am going to thin the lips out just a touch. Alright. Before, after, before, after. So this kind of stunted nose, large head, low eyes, whenever you see like a dwarf or a little person, little people, it's really hard to find the politically correct term for them. This is generally what happens. Any vertical growth is stunted in the body. From the nose bridge to the placement of the eyes to the chin to the neck to the spine to the arms and legs, everything is just stunted. And this isn't just after a certain point and they stop growing. Ever since, even from childhood, they have like a stunted vertical growth happening. So this kind of face, if you had to draw, like that's why I'm saying when you learn your mistake, you still learn that this mistake is still useful. That this kind of face can still be used if you're drawing an elf or a little person. You can still use these kinds of stunted vertical features, but for a fully developed male human who is as handsome as this guy, we're seeing him as the perfect specimen that we're adding to our portfolio to represent our portfolio. But this can also be added to the portfolio. Just don't make the mistake of thinking that this is accurate. Some faces do, however, organic faces, there are a million and one exceptions to these rules, and some faces do come in this short. But typically, you're just supposed to learn perfect the front view in the 14-day challenge this way. And now to do with cast shadows. So let's see if there are any questions. Istebrak, how do I join your community? You just go to the community and you click join. I'm joking. You go to istebrak.com. The link is right here. The G+ community. Click there, join it, and then post your work. Please read the rules before you join. Right? Istebrak, not Ista. I don't like being called Ista. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I really don't like being called Ista. It's not my name. Ista, how do cast shadows ever go past core shadows? Do cast shadows ever go past core shadows? Yes, they do, of course. They don't overlap though. They overlap if it's like if there was a cast shadow here. What I would do is I'd get this and I'd get on darken and then I'd throw it there, but the cast shadow is visible up here because it eventually combines with this right here. So if this was a cast shadow, it wouldn't just overlap like that. It would eventually combine with one of the darkest shadows down here because this shadow and this shadow are the same species. They just behave differently. One of them are a contour shadow. One of them is a contour shadow, one of them is a cast shadow. But cast shadows can overlap if they're coming from different directions. Cast shadows can overlap on each other and get darker where they're overlapped. And core shadows do combine with cast shadows. Unless the cast shadow is specifically on this area and it's dark and, I mean, it has to be sharp as well. So if there was like a little thing floating and he had just a small little cast shadow on his face, it would just be like this light, the cast shadow first of all, and then it would blur on the edges where it doesn't belong, so dark, so sharp, so it would blur over here, and it would, wherever it belongs to the object, that's where it's like, it's closer to the object, the sharper the shadow is going to be, because it belongs to the object casting it, but it's also subject to the object underneath it, which is why it's diffused. But eventually this would, if this was this long, if this cast shadow was this long, it would eventually combine over here. It'd probably disappear for a second too. Get it? Because these and this and this are the same thing. Alright. Let's see if there are any more questions. I will not call you a set anymore. Cast shadows are the same species. Cast shadows and core shadows are the same species. Cast shadows, core shadows, and contour shadows are all the same species of shadow. They're not different. They're just happening in different ways. But they all belong to the same light source, meaning they all have the parent cause that makes them happen. Okay. So now, again, cast shadows. For the upper lip, there's always like a really sharp cast shadow because the upper lip moves out. So his lips are a little low, even if his lips were like really high. So let's say his lips are, where's the lip? Mouth, expressions, smirk. Oh yeah, there's expression. Yay. He's really happy. Okay, sorry. Where is it? Eyes, mouth. So the position of the mouth can be just a little bit higher. Even then, even if the mouth is just closer to the top, from the side we see that this is something that elevates upward. This is an elevation. So we've got hill, valley, hill, valley, hill. So it's a hill. The nose shadows, the shadow of the nose, the shadow of the cheeks do not contest the shadow of the nose, because they're not as bright as or high as the nose. And then again, I'm just blurring this. So what we need to do is show that these upper lips also move upward. The upper lip area, the mustache area, actually catches some light. If you avoided this particular step stylistically for stylistic purposes, that's understandable. But they really should be there. They really should be present. Since the light is coming from the front, the nose could be closer. And I'm pretty sure that the nose is more reflective. The cheekbones are contesting the brightness of. I zoned out. I'm sorry. Really distracted. So before, after. Now the lips have some volume to them. They're actually catching some of the light. And again, with that rule, if the object is bright, if the object is really bright, the cast shadows brighten up with it. They don't stay dark. So this upper lip area actually needs to be much lighter. The cast shadow here needs to be much lighter. Just like that. Okay, and that will explain why you have secondary light source. So before you had all the shadow down here, but then you had a secondary light source reflecting. What was explaining that reflection? There has to be a light over here to explain this line. Okay. And then we've got the cast shadow of the eyes. So they're not really that present. Even if the brow bone was like super strong, so the forehead, like if it was really big, it was just a big forehead. We look at it from the side, you see we can barely tell this stuff unless we move it from the side. Even then the cast shadow wouldn't be that strong because it would have to be the, where's the nose? This bit right here. If this was really strong, to rotate this back, Then we'd have a little bit of a cast shadow. Do you see that? Because this jutted out, and that combined with a stronger forehead, we'd have larger cast shadows. For yours, they're a little bit long considering where they're sourced from. And so I would give them just a little bit more sharpness to show that they're a different kind of, they're the same thing. Shadows are the same thing, but they're behaving differently. Which doesn't mean they're different though. They're still the same. So if we create a distinction, then we're going to treat them differently. But the only reason why we treat cast shadows differently is because they come last. They come in their own little layer. Okay, so I'm just giving them a tiny little suggestion that they're happening in a different way. The upper eyelid would still be very visible. And so the upper eyelid would need a little bit more light to it than what you have here. You have all this brightness and none of that light reach the upper eyelid. This is not possible. So the cast shadows can only be as dark as the darkest shade on the face. If it's lighter, it inherits some of that lightness. Absolutely, well said. Everyone repeat what Hamish just said. Copy, paste it, and just write it out. Good job, Hamish. Okay. But the core shadow is still the darkest center part of the shadow. Can I make the nose more edgy and boxy? What do you mean by edgy and boxy? This current nose right here? And there are ways to, yeah, make it a little bit more masculine. But I just added some light to the upper eyelids because they really needed them. To have a boxy and edgy nose, it would mean that we're having a little bit more so we have a little bit more geometry left behind that we haven't blended out. So it's a simple matter of block, block, and then block, and then block, and then we blend these away as they come, and then block, block. So this is how we get a more edgy nose, like blocking in. Well, you don't have to say the word block though as you do it. And then you blend away as you need to, but of course because this is a more rigid, less curved nose, we don't completely blend it away because then what's the point, right? Just blending away, blending away. Curvy areas like the nostrils can be blended a little extra. And zoom back out. Can't make the nostrils as bright as the tip of the nose. And then erase this little bit away. That was a good choice. I'm on edge today, I don't know why. It's really weird. And I feel so sorry for you guys because you guys are like you have to just deal with my moods as they come. Sometimes I'm really bubbly and I dance on screen, and sometimes I'm just like, fuck the world. I'm out of here. Thank you for being patient with me. Right, so I'm making the nose a little blocky, but this is not a critique, this is just because someone asked how. So you just give it more structure, more edge work. Okay, and then finally, we took care of the cast shadows. There might be a small cast shadow on the chin, but it's slight. I'm just gonna have to reset all the sliders. It's a slight cast shadow on the chin, but to take care of it, I usually just make this little bit sharp. And then finally, the edge of the lower eyelid. This cannot be blurred out. It's not blurred. And it's not it doesn't really combine with the rest of the skin so much that you can blur it out. You have to show that there's some kind of edge happening in this area right here. Right, and if you had to separate some more skin, give him some more age, you can give him a slight little eye bag and then smudge the top of it so you have a little bit less age involved. I always put eye bags because they just make the face look so much more real, so much more organic, less like Ken doll and more like a human. You can have eye bags even if you're 14, even if you're 12. They just make everything feel more realistic. What is this? Close windows. Okay, and as for contrast, I recommend that you bring in some of that black. To the eyes. Just to kind of close off the contrast completely. And when you do that, you can tell how dark you can go. You can go everywhere else. So you can probably go this dark. You see how dark we're going and we're getting away with it. And then using Dodge tool, I'm just going to really quickly give the nose some shine. The nose is one of the oilier parts of the face, sorry. Oh. Be very, very careful with Dodge tool. It's like the most evil thing in the world. Giving some slight shine. Slight shine on the inner part of the lower eye. And then just a lot of shine on the forehead because it's oily. Okay. I'm just going to blur some of this away. And before, after, before, after. See how it looked like a dwarf? Like Tyrion Lannister in his teens? Yeah, I have eye bags and they're dark too. It just happens. Istebrak, do the values of the face follow halfway to black rule? Because oftentimes I see artists use shades that shouldn't be possible unless it is the texture of the human skin that allows. Follow the halfway to black rule. The values of the face depend, how dark they go depends on how dark the skin is. If there's a darker skin tone, they can get dark. If you're painting like a really tan or African skin tone. But when we're painting like average beige, just universal beige skin, whatever, not necessarily white because white is very pale. We have just stay away from blacks that belong to dark spots, and blacks that belong to dark spots just they start here and go down this way. Right, so stay away from those unless the room is black, like unless the room is dark. So it makes no sense to have him, let's see what I can do. It makes no sense to have him have these like no ambience and really, really dark room and have all these dark values and the background be like this bright. The background also has to follow, and sometimes we have like a single pin light causing all of that. So we have like a single pin light like this. So there are still some issues we're dealing with Portrait Studio. Like this Unity, really, we blame it on. Right here. Probably turn that off. At this point, you can have singular, like, dark areas, and this whole bit right here, even though it's skin tone, it's really, really dark. That's because you're not dealing with a universal light source. And when you have a universal light source and it's this bright, it's illuminating everything around it. And there's always going to be some ambience. Oops. Why are you doing that? Okay. There's always going to be some ambience. And so if his skin was really dark, then we would use dark values that don't belong, but they're darkening in unison. They're in uniform. They're moving together. And if his skin is light, then all the other values are moving up with him. The cast shadow is brightening up as well. Okay? So I hope that answered your question. I'm sorry, I'm so out of it today. Someone is asking me about my history. Why did you first get into art, or when? I read a lot as a kid, so I think that's why I got into art. I wanted to draw my stories, or the stories that I was reading. And this is all ambience, and this is not without reflectivity. So you have reflective areas to tell you where reflectivity is, or smoothness. So you kind of move these together at the same time. Right. So this is where that wetness comes from in the nose. Why the nose gets a little bit more wetness than the rest of the body. Yeah, that's it for today. Thank you everyone for watching. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye. And I think you should be a little bit more confident with them. So for the neck, please make sure that it's a cylindrical shape and it's thick enough for the male form. Motherfucker! Dude! Son of a bitch. I am fucking done. I'm so sorry. This is fucking pissing me off. I turned it off. I took the battery out. That's it. I'm done. I'm canceling this fucking home phone. That's it. Get out of here. That's it. I'm sorry, you guys. It really pisses me off. Even when my cell phone rings, I get pissed. Alright. it's one of my tics. I hate when people call me at any way at all. I hate ringing. I hate vibrating. I hate everything. Everything that has to do with phones. I'm sorry. I'll take a breather. Probably have to edit this shit out. 5:47. Oh wait, I don't know. Fuck. I'm at what? What am I at? What part of the video am I at? So I can reference it for later. Oh, man. I'm just so fucking pissed off right now. And I laugh when I'm pissed. I do, but I'm really not happy. I'm just like sitting on flames. All right, where was I? Fuck. All right, I'm just trying to not die by using this right now. It's like shit's flying out of the. It's okay. Calm down.